non-residential real estate, the number is going to be about $200 per month. Cash flow per door.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk because you have to fix everything. And there's probably some threshold and everyone is different. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $500. But if the refrigerator goes out, landlord, stove goes out, landlord, leak, landlord, light bulb, tenant, right? So little small things is on the tenant, big things are on the landlord. The problem with that is if you take 200 times 12 months, $2,400, let's round to 25. How much is a new fridge? You've just lost the whole freaking year on one thing that went wrong. If next year the washer or the dryer go out, good God, like you're just, the only way to make money on that is forced appreciation, natural appreciation, or or accelerated depreciation on your taxes, right? And those are all things that we can talk about further.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. Today, we are doing our first Zoom podcast, and it's kind of unique. We haven't done this in a long, long time, but we have on our guest and friend from Florida, Keith Gillispie, an investor who's been in the business for quite a few years now and doing some really interesting dispositions and marketing, and so we wanted to have you on to talk.
Thank you, guys. I super appreciate it.
Keith, can you do a quick introduction on your company and where you guys are coming from?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll sort of start at the beginning. Otherwise, what I'll say now won't make sense. But I started my real estate investing career while I was active duty in the Marine Corps. And, you know, the nature of the Marine Corps is you're sort of bouncing around all over the place. And so I had my squad leader knew that I was really into finances. And he said, Keith, I just finished this book. I think you'd absolutely love it. And he gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Classic.
And yeah, classic. Probably a lot of people listening to this or watching this have read it. And if you haven't, you need to. So I read that book and the very next month started a corporation investing in real estate. And so that business kind of bounced around with me from Northern Virginia over to Hawaii. We moved from Hawaii last year to now I'm in Melbourne, Florida. So although I geographically live in Florida, I invest nationwide, all 50 states. So that's sort of where my business is right now.
Very cool. Keith, can you elaborate a little bit too? What kind of investing are you guys doing? Has it changed since you started when you were back in the military? Yeah, can you give a little bit?
Changed, it's evolved for the better a lot. And when I was active duty in the Marine Corps, you know, the Marine Corps is not a 9-to-5 job. You don't come to work and clock in and clock out. Like work follows you home. You're on call 24/7. You have extra ancillary duties and you're getting shuttled all over the freaking globe. So I didn't have time to deal with contractors and bids and scope of work and change orders and raising all the blah, 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 blah. So we started off just wholesaling. And that's primarily what I did, both in Northern Virginia for a year. We did 2 flips there. The rest were wholesales. And we went to Hawaii and I became the largest wholesaler in Hawaii for several years. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2020 and I decided like, dude, there's no longer this excuse of time. I have all day. So it's time to put your big boy pants on, learn how to rehab, learn how to properly hire contractors, learn how to do this. And frankly, I got greedy because ever since then, I've wholesaled one house and it was on accident. Like literally last year, I think maybe November or something, I wholesaled a house. Hasn't been 4 years since I wholesaled a house. Since I got out of the Marine Corps, we have taken down every single one of those properties. And our primary exit strategies is either wholesale, and that's kind of if wholesaling and retailing had a baby.
Right.
So wholesaling, you know, no work, no risk, no money, very little time. Whereas retail, you're listing it on the MLS for full retail value. Well, wholesale is you're not doing anything really to the house, maybe cleaning it up, maybe like junk removal team will go in, get the place not neat, tidy, right? Sweep, mop, dust, that sort of thing, and then list it. So that's primary exit strategy number one. And my secondary exit strategy is wrapping notes. So I'll either buy it subject to its underlying mortgage, or I'll buy it with owner financing, or a hybrid of both. So no matter which one of those three ways, there's a note, right? There's a promissory note. And then when I sell it with owner financing, creating a wrapped note around those smaller notes. And every now and then I'll still do a retail deal. I have a really big, like $50,000 to $60,000 renovation going on right now in Louisiana, albeit it's really difficult. The people who are listening who have done extensive renovations and handled contractors know that it's not really easy. It's not fun. Herding cats and making sure that people show up to work on time and you're not getting cheated. And it's exponentially more difficult when you're doing that thousands of miles away.
Dude, that's super cool. You and I spoke on a meeting similar to this, not recorded, just a couple weeks ago. And I know we're going to jump a lot into that disposition side, I think, in this market being skillful there. But I kind of want to go back. Our podcast, like I had said, is really like, it's geared to helping the new investor get started. Can we go back and talk a little more about what that first few years while you were working at the Marine Corps looked like? Because I can't imagine being in the military, having a 24-hour job and still wholesaling properties in, you said Northern or Western Virginia?
In Virginia, so DMV area, where DC and meets with Maryland and Virginia. That's sort of where I was doing all of our stuff.
How did you do that? How were you working in the military and then also wholesaling property?
By not sleeping. So we started off acquiring houses off the MLS, just what I call slinging dirty lowball offers. Just trying to make as many freaking offers all day long. You just look at Zillow times 0.5, that's my offer. Like, just horrible. I do not condone what I did. However, that is the truth of how I got started. And that's how we got our first couple of deals.
And then who did you assign it to?
Well, those are people that I partnered with, actually. We didn't assign any of those.
So you had people that were actually taking over and flipping the houses themselves?
I partnered with a lady from my church. She was a realtor and a real estate investor. So I would find the houses. I would do a little bit of due diligence. She would put in the paperwork for the offer. And then when we would take the property down, she would be the one primarily that raised all the money. And I'm the one who handled the renovation.
Cool. Did you have any family? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have any family in real estate before?
Rich Dad Poor Dad was my first step in the water, and I quickly just went to the deep end.
I love it. And then Keith, I was going to ask too, following up. So you start by JVing with somebody who it's their full-time job and they've been around the block a little bit with doing it. When do you kind of make that transition to doing deals maybe by yourself or kind of leading the charge? And what are you doing? Because a big thing, like Scott had mentioned, obviously a big, listener base of the podcast, I think people will find a lot of value in is people who also have this full-time job going on. Obviously the Marine Corps being one of the biggest full-time 24/7 jobs you can have. I know you started on the MLS, but then where are you going after that when you start to get your feet wet to source your deals as a full-time, obviously person in the Marine Corps?
So very quickly, we got into outbound marketing. And so 2016 was the year of the MLS. And then 2017, 18, 19 was outbound marketing. And during that time, we did hundreds of thousands of dollars of text blasting, ringless voicemail drops, cold calling, direct mail, door hangers, bandit signs, newspaper ads, magnets, like you name it, we have done it except for TV and radio. All of the what you would maybe consider like guerrilla marketing or so.
Yeah.
And so I would buy the lists, skip trace them, and then put them on this like multifaceted array. So they're getting direct mail and ringless voicemail and text message blasting and emails, and somebody's reaching out to cold call them. And then we put a freaking sign out in their front yard, and then we hang their door with a door hanger. We're just like every way that you could, this is going to sound perverted, but every way you could touch somebody, we were touching them.
Totally get it. So your strategy was to go through multiple forms of marketing. I know some people, their thought is that you dive deep into one marketing platform, but it sounds like you found success trying a variation. And who did you decide to market to?
We would, by now, the term list stacking is like everyone knows about it. Back in 2017, that wasn't the case. And so I was being mentored by arguably at the time, the largest wholesaler in the nation. He was right there in Washington, D.C. And he's the one who kind of taught me how to do this. I went to one of his RIA meetups, and then I walked up to him afterwards, like some snotty little kid. I was dressed up in my suit and everything like this. And I said, "Hey, you don't know this yet, but you're going to be my mentor." And
Wow.
he said, "I don't think you know who I am, and that's why you said it that way. But I like that, and why don't you come look at our office?" And so we started building our relationship from there. And he's the one who kind of taught me about this list stacking. So I would pull like a pre-foreclosure list, as well as a divorce list, as well as a tax lien list, as well as every list known to me. You're violating the code. And we would stack them all, and then we would up to 8. Like there are some people that are just dealt a really rough hand in life, and they're like on 8 lists. Like they've inherited a house, they've gone through divorce, they've been through foreclosure, they've been through bankruptcy, they're not taking care of their house, there's taxes owed on it, it's code violation, and I can't think of what an 8th one would be, but like all of it is happening within 2 years. And so they're showing up on all these lists. Dude, if you can get in touch with one of those people, they will throw the keys at you. It is free. Just take the house. I don't even care. That's the mentality of these people. So we would hit them in order of how many lists they were in. So people that were in 8 lists, they got everything. 7 lists, 6 lists, 5, 4. As soon as we got down to 3, now we're talking about tens of thousands of people rather than single thousands, like 4 digits. I can market to 4 digits of people using all those mediums. Each one of those is a marketing medium, right? I can market to those people like fairly effectively. But as soon as we get to tens of thousands of people, you're no longer talking about like a 4-digit per month budget. You're now talking about a 5 or 6 digit per month marketing budget. And I didn't have.
That leads me into my next question too, which I think people will be asking, and I'm curious is, I know obviously you started JVing deals. You get, obviously, I would assume, some money from these deals and you kind of stash it away. Are you using money that you had built from those initial deals to get all of these marketing channels started and paid for? Or are you using your primary income to supplement and pay for that stuff? Both. Okay.
At this point, and I'll talk a little bit to a word that Scott used a little bit ago. He said, you were doing this successfully, and everyone's going to have different definitions of success. Were the postcards going out? Yeah. And so is the cold callers. 990,000 phone calls have been made from my office, so we're successfully marketing, but my definition of successful would be very black and white, objective. Are you in the black rather than the red? Are you making more than what you're spending? Mm-hmm. And the answer to that at that time was no. It wasn't successful. I was taking all of my money from deals, putting it back into marketing, and supplementing my Marine Corps income to do this. And I have a lot of credit cards that we were putting all this stuff on credit, right? And I certainly wasn't treating it like a business. It was a hobby. And real estate is a very expensive hobby.
So how many years were you doing that before you realized that you needed to make a change?
until 2020. In 2020, I bankrupted myself, my business, and my business partner.
Dang.
It has got to change.
Did you file bankruptcy or did you just go completely zero?
More than zero. I went negative. I never filed.
Wow.
I decided I'm going to take this seriously. And that was the same year that I was getting out of the Marine Corps. So it was like, I have no money. And in just a couple of months, I'm going to have no money coming in. So something needs to shift, and it needs to happen like yesterday.
So what changed?
Two primary things changed. I no longer do outbound marketing. I do inbound marketing. So the difference meaning cold calling, I'm calling them, hey, I'm an investor in the area. I was wondering if you'd want a fair, fast cash offer for your house. We're looking at buying some more houses in the area. And then the response to that is, well, sure, I'd sell my house for the right price. I don't like that. I like it when somebody has a problem, number one, and number two, they're actively engaging in a solution. They're actively searching for a solution. So when somebody goes on Google and they say, how to sell my house fast before I burn it down, that person has some inherent motivation. I like that. Now they go to my website, they fill out their form, I call them, and I am the price. Rather than their house being the price for me, and they have all the frame and I have all the motivation.
Mhm.
With inbound marketing, they have all the motivation. I am their price. Therefore, I have all the frame. I have all the negotiating power. And so that was number one. Change number one was we went strictly to a PPC, a Google PPC. I don't like Facebook. I don't like any of the other, Bing and stuff like that. Google PPC so far has been the best for us. And that's from 2020 to present day. That's been my exclusive form of marketing. It's
Okay.
PPC. So that was change number one. Change number two was going wide. And what I mean by that is when I was in Virginia, I targeted people who were in my local area. And when I moved to Hawaii in 2017, I targeted people who were in Hawaii. I was on the island of Oahu. I targeted all of the islands of Hawaii, but they were within that state, right? And that's really expensive if you're doing a PPC model. Believe it or not, the more you spread yourself out, the cheaper your leads get, because it's simple economics 101, supply versus demand. And here's the thing. If you're in let's say that you're in Arizona. Arizona is a hot spot for people to be flipping houses. And name any city in Arizona, there's going to be a lot of people running PPC. The problem with this is most of the time, the supply is under the demand, meaning you have 100 investors all willing to spend $10,000 per month. Therefore, they can handle a query volume. A query is when you search something on Google. They can handle a query volume of 1 million per month. The problem is that there's only 880,000 queries. So you are always having more investors willing to spend more money, but not the volume to supply them. Whereas, and therefore, that drives up prices, right? Supply and demand, economics 101. That's going to drive up the prices. So if you're only investing in that city, your cost per click, let's talk about cost per lead actually. Your cost per lead is going to be like roughly $200, maybe $250. Depending on the day, maybe even upwards of greater than $300. It's extremely expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you spread yourself out, there's going to be a time in the day. So right now I'm in 205 metropolitan cities, the top 205 most populated metropolitan cities in the United States. There's 205 of them. At some point during the day, in one of those metropolitan cities, there's going to be more supply than there is demand. And Google says, my phone just lit up. Google's going to say, I have to give this to somebody, right? This person typed something in. And so rather than paying $250 for the lead, I'll bid $8. And Google is forced to give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens at least one time per day, every day, across 205 cities. And so the more you spread yourself out, so I used to be in 360 cities, and
Mhm.
my cost per lead was even cheaper than it is now. Right now, it's 35 to 40 cost per lead. If you're in 360 cities, that's going to drop to around 20. If you're nationwide, it'll be 4.
Mhm.
I don't recommend anybody doing that because it's easy to buy houses. That way, it's really hard to sell them when you're in, BFE, podunk,
Right.
nowhere, cornfield, Iowa.
Very cool. So you found one of the big changes for your business to go from being a hobby and losing money to making money. You change your marketing scheme. Uh, was there like a time where everything kind of came to like a stop? I know we cold call. That's kind of how we market. We've found that there's months where cold calling does great. There's months where it doesn't do great. And the people that we see who also have success in our area, they do a lot of inbound marketing like what you're talking about, either PPC or mail or something along that line. How did the transition look for you when you went from outbound marketing to inbound?
It's direct correlation. Like the more letters you send out, the more calls you make, the more text messages go out, the more leads you're going to get, right? And when you're managing all that yourself, like if you're lazy and you take your foot off the gas, then you're going to get less leads. It's that simple. Um, it's really easy to manage PPC because it's just a toggle on and off, and here's my daily budget. And so there was nearly no downtime transitioning from outbound to inbound. We set it up as soon as we saw like, okay, leads are coming in. We shut down 100% of our operations, and literally like the very same week we made the switch to inbound marketing. And since then, there hasn't been any downtime. And the reason for that is I target 5 types of people: people who are going through pre-foreclosure, people who are going through divorce, people who have inherited a property, people who have some issue with their health and safety, or people who are tired landlords. So more than 80% of my business, the houses that I buy, come from 1, if not 2, if not 3, if not 4 of these, what I call big 5. Actually, my mentor, Brad Smotherman, is the one who came up with that. I'll give him credit. He calls it the big 5. And I have the same exact model in my business. There's never going to be a downtime because people are always dying, getting divorced, going through foreclosure. There's always problems.
Yeah.
There's always an avenue to help them. And Google is everywhere. So
Very cool.
Keith, I want to make a shift to talking. I want to dive deep because Scott gave me a little bit of a teaser on your guys' conversation. It was something that was really, really interesting to me, just on the little bit of info I was able to collect. But obviously, over the past 12, 18 months, going through significant market shifts, post COVID, and people have had to get creative, right? Not only to find deals, but also to disposition deals and to close deals. And so, can you talk more about that strategy you were talking about on the disposition side that you guys have been working on and refining in order to get more deals inked and get more deals closed?
yeah. So I have, like I mentioned earlier, I have 2 preferred disposition methods. One of them is the MLS. So whether I'm wholesaling it or retailing it, we use the MLS. Or the other one, and the one that I think that you're wanting me to go deeper into, is owner financing these
Yep.
houses. And so let me first explain that owner financing is typically meant for people who cannot get conventional financing. And if you were to Google last month, it's the month of February, if you were to Google how many people tried to get conventional financing but got declined, depending on what source you look up, they're all in the 60%. 60, 63, 67%. So 60 plus, the majority of the market, regardless of which one of those you're looking at, the majority of the market cannot get conventional financing right now. Interest rates are too high. Therefore, their buying power is very low. Therefore, they have to get a smaller house, and they're not going to get that one. Or they don't have 2 years of consistent income with the same employer because they lost their job in COVID or just recently. So there's all these red tape, all these stipulations that conventional financing, whether it's going to be conventional loan, FHA loan, VA loan, shoot, even an SBA loan, something like that, there's a lot of red tape, and owner financing cuts out that red tape. It's on you as the individual or as the business. What is your model? Where is your bar? Like I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but we can cut it out if we find out that it's bad. I won't owner finance to somebody who's not paying their alimony. Like that's morally wrong.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. I would prefer to sell to somebody else over that person.
Right.
And that's my prerogative. I don't really care about your credit score. I believe that your money is your credit. So if you have a sizable down payment and if you have a steady job or steady income coming in, as long as I feel, warm and fuzzy that you're going to make your payments on time every time, I'll finance a house to you. It's got to look like you're going to.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do you get in contact with that 60-something% of people that may have gotten declined?
So I went to Brad Smotherman's mastermind last year, January or so. And they were talking about owner financing and we're running deals on the board. And I had a couple of my deals from whatever year that was, 2021, I think. And we did well. We made $300 and something thousand, and I was really happy about that. But then I have them throw my numbers up on the board, and instead of retailing, if we were to owner finance, what would the numbers be like? And it was over $500,000. And I'm like, dear God, I gave up $250,000 because I retailed out rather than owner financing out. And that's not even including the interest that you're going to accrue over time. That was just like immediate equity captured.
Mm-hmm.
$250,000 is what I gave up. And so that just bugged me so much. And I remember I'm sitting on the plane. I love thinking on planes because there's no distractions. Nobody talks to me. I put my earbuds in and everything. I'm just sitting there. How can I solve this problem? How can I owner finance houses? Because I had tried, I should say. But I was in Hawaii, and the houses that I was owner financing were on the East Coast. There's a 6-hour time difference. And so they would go at what they would consider a reasonable hour, like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. But that really pisses me off because they're calling at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. And I'm not a very pleasant person. I'm a little bit grumpy in the morning. And so I had unsuccessfully tried to owner finance previously. And I was like, I have to get an automated way to get these people in the door. So they're not calling me for me to give them the code to the lockbox to get in the house and walk in, right? Because no Joe Blow off the street, unless they're an investor, they're not going to buy a house sight unseen. They're going to want to walk the property, bring their wife, feel emotionally connected, that sort of see themselves, vision themselves in the home. And so I thought to myself, well, there's this company called Rently that uses an automated lockbox service. So the person creates an account, they verify their ID and everything like that. They go to the lockbox, they put in the lockbox serial number. It sends them a code using 4G LTE service, right? It's a one-time use code, and it gets them into the house. And I'm like, this is brilliant, but it's for renters. And then drop me in 100 Walmarts across the United States, and I'm allowed to walk up to one person and ask them, excuse me, can you please explain in 2 sentences what owner financing is?
No.
How many people? How many people are going to?
No.
One, maybe, but I sincerely doubt it.
Yeah.
And if they explain it, it's probably not going to be in 2 sentences. And even with it being a very long, it's probably wrong, right? They're probably talking about like a lease option or a rent to own type of scenario, not actual owner financing. Allow me to talk to those same people in 2 sentences or less. Can you please explain renting? Unless I'm going to a child, how many of those 100 people can explain renting to?
Everybody would know.
Every single person. So most people don't know what owner financing is or what it is for. And it dawned on me that most people who rent are renting because they're forced to rent because they cannot get a loan. And they don't know that it's an option for them because they don't know that owner financing exists.
Gotcha.
And so then it became my mission to list houses for rent. And you'd be very surprised. I can pull up like stats maybe later. Now is not the appropriate time, but greater than 70% of the people that we talk to, when asked, is this a home that you would like to own, that you could see yourself owning? They say yes.
Gotcha. So you start the conversation by showing it as a rental, and then once they've walked the home, you say, "Hey, do you like this enough that you would buy it if you had that option?" And then how does that even, like, how do you have that conversation if they walked in there thinking, they were going to rent? How do you talk to them about buying?
Super easy. And I'm good with well, man, that's a pompous statement. I believe that I'm good with sales and communication and talking to people. So I always start off just stating who I am, my relationship to the property. We bought this house to rent it out for a while, but recently we've been we've been kind of kicking around the idea of selling this house with owner financing. Now, I know that you went to the house and you're interested in renting it because we only talk to people who are interested in moving forward, right? They contact the property manager number and they say, "Hey, I'm ready to fill out my application," or whatever. I know that you're interested in renting it. Now, is there any reason that you're looking to rent the house rather than buy it? The vast majority of the time, they bring up credit. The vast majority of the time.
Okay.
Sometimes there's other things that come up. And I have rebuttals like written out. So if they say this, here's my script. If they say this, here's my script, right?
Right.
But the majority of the time they say credit. And then I explain to them, well, with owner financing, we don't really care about your credit. We believe that your income is your credit. So you getting approved has nothing to do with your credit score. By law, I have to, right, with Dodd-Frank.
Right.
It's Dodd-Frank, right? Yeah. So that I'm not a predatory lender or anything like that. I have to pull their credit. I go through, dot all my I's, cross all my T's, hire an RMLO, a residential mortgage loan officer. He does the whole underwriting process and everything for us. So I have to pull their credit, but I tell them it's not based on your credit. There's two things that I care about. The first is your down payment. The second is I want to get the warm and fuzzies that you have a steady stream of income coming in so that I know that you're going to make your payment on time every time. Those are the two things that I care about. Now, is there any other issues, right? So we overcome all their objections of why they would want to rent rather than own. And we go through the full list. And I've got maybe 6 or 7 different things sort of planned out to talk about. We've done this hundreds of times, right? So taking their feedback, we're already prepared with what to say. We overcome all their objections, and then we pop the question. Now, I know that you are interested in renting the house, but like if we could work out the numbers so that this works for you and your family, is this a house that you would want to own, that you could see yourself owning? And they say yes. Well, fantastic. Now we'll talk about the price and stuff. Now, I know that you weren't really planning on me giving you a call about buying this house, but do you have any idea about how much of a down payment you'd be able to put down? And now we start talking about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Keith, can you explain real quick? Because the question I have in my mind is, and I'm curious how the numbers pencil out, is why would somebody like you or another investor who's looking at this as another, disposition option for them, why would they want to look that route instead of if they've already locked up the property on, really good, owner finance or subject to, right? Instead of turning around and renting it and keeping it, as their own door, why would they look towards something like this instead of holding on to the door?
Super good question. I believe that renting has a higher risk and lower reward. I'll tell you what I mean. If you are renting the house, you're a landlord, and there is a storm that damages the home, who is liable to fix the damages? The landlord, right? Let's say that there's we always talk about toilets. Toilets don't leak that much, but it always comes up. So God forbid there's a leak in the house, whether it's from a toilet or a tub or a sink or the roof or whatever, who's liable? The landlord, right? And if you were to do a blanket statement, this is an overgeneralization, and I know that, but an overgeneralization of how much do you cash flow per door on single family houses. We're going to keep this residential real estate, not commercial, not apartments, not nothing like that. On residential real estate, the number is going to be about $200 per month cash flow per door.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk because you have to fix everything. And there's probably some threshold and everyone is different. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $500. But if the refrigerator goes out, landlord, stove goes out, landlord, leak, landlord, light bulb, tenant, right? So little small things is on the tenant, big things are on the landlord. The problem with that is if you take 200 times 12 months, $2,400, let's round to 25. How much is a new fridge? You've just lost the whole freaking year on one thing that went wrong. If next year the washer or the dryer go out, good God, like you're just, the only way to make money on that is forced appreciation, natural appreciation, or or accelerated depreciation on your taxes, right? And those are all things that we can talk about further.
Yeah.
But let's flip over to owner finance. Way lower risk. If anything goes wrong with the house, you're the bank, they own the house. Have you ever gone to your bank and said, fix this toilet? No, it's your freaking house. There's one thing and one thing only that can go wrong. They stop making their payments. What do? You foreclose, you get the house back, and you sell it again. And we call it a second bite out of the apple because you collected a $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 down payment the first time. That's going to cover your foreclosure cost of $5,000 to $10,000 depending on the state. And then you resell it and collect another $30,000 down payment. So there's only one thing that can go wrong. That's that they stop making their payments, and we handle that just like any old bank would.
Mm-hmm.
So there's much less risk and there's much higher reward. The reason why there's higher reward is I have never wrapped a property where the cash flow is $200. That is abysmal. That's not even worth servicing the note on, frankly.
What do you?
You should be expecting $600.
Wow.
There's plenty of houses that you'll cash flow greater than $1,000. That's a good deal. I'm not going to lie. That's like if you're flipping a house and you make $100,000. Actually, just take what you would flip a house for, take off a couple of zeros. So $100,000 house, that would be, and I've done $100,000 plus, net profit on. That's like $1,000 per month cash flowing house. Whereas when I flip a house, my average is about $50,000 to $60,000. Well, your average cash flow on a note is going to be $600.
Keith, we're running low on time here. We apologize only because we didn't plan far enough and ahead to have that pro subscription. We want to have an opportunity for you to leave something for the new investor that's watching this and saying, I want to get into real estate, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I have Tony Robbins talks about how there needs to be a vacancy before you fill it. So we're going to talk about the vacuum. Stop spending money on shiny objects. Don't do that. And then the one thing that I would tell you to do is focus on one thing. Find a mentor. Success leaves clues. That mentor is going to have those clues and is going to be dropping them. And focus on one thing. I really wish that I had done that rather than joining 39 programs, spending $300,000 on education and chasing every shiny object squirrel that I possibly could. And I wish I found my mentor 5 years sooner.
And that's perfect to leave it off with. How do people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Facebook. Facebook is the only way. Keith Gillespie, Gillispie. That's the only way that you'll be able to find me. I'm not on any other social media platform.
Well, Keith, great talking to you. This is about to cut out. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Pursuit of Property podcast.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys.